You're an honorary club member, but you can't walk away with the club's property.
Well, darn. Unless I see it. Well, I walked away with the swimsuit, so.
Wow. So you already got away with more than you should, it sounds like.
Okay. So it does take me a second to get it onto a Facebook Live, so just a second.
Okay. So this is live, actually.
Well, right now I'm recording it, and I record it so that I can edit it later.
Okay.
But the live gets a lot of engagement on Facebook. So what I do is I'll go live, and then I take the actual recorded video, and then I trim it and make it a little bit more professional.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then that I can share, in the future or on the website and blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
And so, as we're talking, if you ever see me looking down like this, I'm looking at my phone to see if there's any comments, because you can't see it on Zoom. You can't see comments on Zoom, but you can if I have my phone. And then I also push it to groups as we're filming. I'll push it to say a networking group or something. So that gets us more views.
Yeah.
There's a whole system with this.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Oh, do you want to see some of my creepy backgrounds?
Sure.
Okay, check this out. So you're in the middle of a meeting. And you see this behind me.
Wow.
Or this. Or this.
Oh, geez. Wow.
Right. I know. I've got other good ones too, but.
The lighthouse. Nice. The wine cellar. That one's cool.
I have so many different ones. It's ridiculous. So. Oh, here's a cockpit.
Wow.
Right? I'm gonna go with this one today.
Looks good. I'm just in my house. We've got these dogs in the background.
I love the dogs. Okay, wait, but you need to move the camera because I can't see. Okay, there you go. Well, you're right in front of one of them.
Should be
so
in the middle here.
You got to be off a little bit.
It's kind of weird though, don't you think?
That's why I love it.
Make it offset and let's see, full screen. How do I make myself bigger? Well, I suppose I can see it here. I think it's all right. I mean, if it's over here, that's almost weird, don't you think? In between, maybe we could. No, if it was sideways, let's just keep it like this. I think. Now, what do you think? You think that looks weird? They're kind of half there. Should I be like this?
I think if you moved, let's see. I think you're mirrored. So if you move to the left, which would be your right.
Go over here.
Yeah, your physical body. Right. Whoa, right there. That's perfect. Because then you can see both the dogs, but it's not awkwardly weird.
Yeah, maybe like this.
Yes, that looks good.
So I need to be in. Okay, maybe even go further. And then tilt it like this. Okay, like this.
Right there. Go back. Okay, why is
that? It'd be nice to have all three, right? Maybe like this. No, we probably can't handle 3.
I think 3 would be much.
Like this. What do you think?
Yes, I like that. That looks aesthetically pleasing.
Good. I don't want it to be unpleasing to anybody.
I've been obsessed with that lately, so don't take it personally.
Sure.
You should see my living room right now. It's picture perfect.
Oh, is it? Well, let's flip to it. Let's see it.
Ow. Well, we're in my bedroom right now. We're I can't pick up the desktop and take you in there at the moment.
Nah, I see.
Okay, so it's preparing. It's pulling up the menu, and then I have to tell it a few different options, and then it just takes a second for this to get going.
Okay.
I've also learned that after about an hour of Zooming, especially if I'm doing a screen share, my computer crashes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
Okay. Options are good. Allow viewers to rewind. Yeah, why wouldn't you have that?
Because maybe you need to make it so that if you snooze, you lose.
Well, I guess, well, it won't let me change this setting, so I guess that's how it's going to be.
No, no, I think it's a lesson that needs to be well ingrained to the viewers.
Okay, title, Talking Insurance with Ryan Sobel, unless you have a better title.
Sounds good to me.
Let's see, so Sobel, do you have a Facebook page for Sobel?
No,
No? Okay.
at least I don't think so. Maybe I do. I don't think I made one though.
Okay, so Ryan Sobel.
So I do have a website though, sobelfinancial.com.
Okay, I'll put that on here.
Okay.
Ryan Sobel demystifies the
Insurance myths.
insurance myths.
I don't know.
Myth, Jessica Gonzalez.
Mm.
And I can always change this later too. Check his company out at www.sobelfinancial.com.
Yeah, sobelfinancial.com.
Going live. You'll see it on the top of your screen in a second.
I see it. Looks like we're on.
All right. Okay, so wanted to get Ryan Sobel onto a Zoom call. He's been nice enough to gradually give me some tips until finally I told him just completely dispel this for me, or demystify the world of insurance for me, because I have no idea what I'm doing. And I feel as a 33-year-old, I probably should. So
Sure.
Ryan, hopefully you can answer my questions. Let's start with the basics. What should I know on the basic level for insurance?
Well, I think more than actually knowing anything, it's more of a philosophy around why people have insurance at all. So maybe just flip this back to you. Why do people own insurance? And why is it a multi-billion-dollar industry?
I mean, I would suspect it's to take care of people collectively, I'm hoping, right? Like we kind of pull all of our money together, and when life gets crazy and something unexpected happens, or if I die, my loved ones will be taken care of. That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah, it actually started a very, very long time ago. I don't remember when exactly, but it's hundreds. I think the concept may even be as old as thousands of years old, where people in a town, occasionally really bad things would happen to one person. And so what they started doing, and I wish I could remember the name of it, but all the people in the town got together and started piling up like a reserve of money that was collectively, because they didn't know if something bad was going to happen to one person or when or how. And they basically started their own de facto insurance company before we actually had large corporations. I think philosophically is the reason most wealthy people, I think, choose to own various kinds of insurance is because they spend a lot of their time working. People are working 40 hours a week. And if we look at, well, why do we actually work? Why are we toiling away at our jobs? And some people work because they love it. But if you were to ask, would a person still do the same job they're doing if they stop paying you? And most people would probably say no. There are some people that would, because they do it because they love it. But for the most part, people, I think, are working really hard because they're trying to make money. So
You wanted to say hi, so I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, right. I think what's your kitty's name?
Oh, this is Lily. And
Lily.
I kind of figured people will be hearing her meow, so I figured I would show where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Is Lily going to be a good insurance customer, do you think?
I think she would. I think she's really interested in this.
She works
anyway,
really hard,
as you were saying, and if anyone has any questions, I am watching our Facebook live chat. So if anyone has questions for Ryan, feel free to send them along.
Yeah. So kind of go back to what we were saying is that people are working, spending hours and hours and hours of their lives working for the most part to make money. And what do they do with the money? They either really comes down to they spend it or they save it. And if they're spending it, they're usually spending it on their lifestyle, things that they want or things they need. And then if they're saving it, they're piling up, hopefully a lot of it, for that one day they can stop working and retire and live off of all of that. So from my experience, what I found is that the more money a person is making, the more they actually care about protecting it. If somebody has little to no money and they have little to no income, like, forget it, I'm not going to bother protecting it because I frankly don't really have that much. But this attitude starts to change as people's wealth numbers get higher and higher and higher. And so I would say that even though there's a lot of different types of insurance, like philosophically, we have to decide that if we're trying to accumulate money either for later or have a high income so we can enjoy it today, how much do we care about that? Really is the extent that we want to own insurance. Because unfortunately, there's a variety of things that can happen to anybody at any time. Someone could have a theft, flood, vandalism, death, disability, lawsuit. There's a whole myriad of things that can throw somebody's financial life completely off track. And so what most people would rather do is they'd rather carve off some of the wealth that they're growing and building to make sure that they don't lose it. In other words, people tend to want to take as much risk off the table as they possibly can. And obviously this last year has been a great example. Stuff can happen unexpectedly that can throw somebody's financial life off course. And so for many people, they want to remove as much of that risk as possible so that if anything does happen, like if their car gets destroyed, then their car is fully replaced. If they lose their income gets replaced. If they get sued, then the money that they get sued for something doesn't come out of their own pocket. It comes from an insurance company. So I think that's kind of the high level gist of it. And then working out the best way to do that is sort of more details and granular type of a conversation. So super high level, that's kind of the philosophy. I don't know, any thoughts, questions about that?
Well, so let me paraphrase if I can. So basically, the more money you make, I think you're right, because I've noticed that with me. You know, if I have more money, more expendable money, right? And I think when I was younger, I would go blow it on the dumbest things. But as I, of course, have gotten older and started to get more expendable money, I was a little bit more aware of what I was going to do with that long term and started using it a little bit wiser, wanting to invest it in things that, you know, my father gets on me constantly about preparing for what could happen. That's his super.
I see.
So
I see.
he drills that into my head constantly.
Well, so let me ask you this then. He's been drilling this into your head. Most people, when their parents feel very strongly about something, they'll either do one or two things. They'll either accept it and be that way, or they'll reject it and kind of do the opposite because, you know what, it's my life, not yours kind of feeling.
Well, I will admit that prior to the pandemic, I took the perspective that he should live a little bit more. You know what I mean? Because I also don't see him spending it on things that I feel are also equally important, like taking care of his health or, you know, like splurging a little bit, going on a vacation. But then the pandemic hit and I was like, yeah, now I see why he has wanted me to prepare for the future, because things like a pandemic can happen, right? And we don't think about that. We just want to go have fun. So it's really, at least for me, got me thinking more about delayed gratification and how I can prepare for the future.
And insurance is one of the strange things that it's something that's important to buy when you do not need it. You usually think, wow, I need a shovel. It snowed a lot. I'm going to go buy a shovel now. You actually have to buy it before you need it, because if you wait until you need it, no one will sell it to you. For example, let's say you look at homeowners insurance and suddenly a hurricane is coming and it's about to hit the coast. Insurance companies will stop insuring any house that's over there because they're now in like a flood zone or a high damage zone. So people actually have to get it before they need it. So which takes a very, you could say, a very unique kind of an attitude to buy something that we don't need at a time when we don't need it, because maybe we'll need it later.
Yeah.
That's very difficult. Same thing with health insurance. Not actually, health insurance is not a good example. Life insurance is a better example. If you wait until you're diagnosed with stage 4 cancer to try to buy life insurance, there's no life insurance company on the planet that'll insure that person. So people have to get insurance while they're young and healthy, or while they're not in a immediate risk zone of something. So it's Yeah, I've had many conversations with people about insurance. It's been about half of my job. Half of my job, I would say, is insurance. The other half is investments and retirement, that kind of thing. But it doesn't really matter how much money a person has necessarily in their retirement account if they get involved in a lawsuit and get sued for several $1 million, or they lose their income, or something else like that happens. So it's almost like, I
So,
think. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna ask, like, when you apply for a job and it always asks you if you have a disability, I'm assuming that has to do with insurance, right? They're wanting to know, do you have a pre-existing disability now before we hire you? Is that bad or good for them to be asking that?
Um, so I got to say, I don't remember. Well, so I own my own business, and I've never actually been asked that question. So
Oh,
my guess would be it has something to do with the health insurance, and they're asking. I don't know. I don't honestly see that get asked very often by employers, frankly.
oh
Have
yeah.
you been
Whenever
asked this?
you
Okay.
apply for a job, it always asks you, usually it asks you three things: what your race is. Um, you don't have to answer. Like there is always an option to just not disclose it. But there's also like, do you have an existing disability? And I would assume that if like then all of a sudden you're claiming you have a disability, that your insurance would be like, well, when we hired you, you claimed that you didn't have anything. I don't know. I think it's a way to
Sure.
help with the timing of things. I was just always really curious about that.
Yeah. When somebody has insurance through their work, it's a very different situation than an individual going out and buying a policy. And usually they're a lot less concerned about that person's health or their individual risk because they're insuring such a large group of people. So, for example, if you go to work at Microsoft and there's thousands and thousands of employees, they know that even if one person is sick when they get a job and they get insurance, that for the most part, they have so many people in their pool that it doesn't make that big of an impact versus an individual that's trying to get insurance. There's not a pool to kind
Mm,
of protect the insurance company if that person is a bad risk or they're sick or something like that.
gotcha. Okay. So when someone is ready to get insurance, they're like, okay, I want to prepare for the future. I want to make sure people are taken care of. So what types of insurance are there?
Sure. So the first thing I talk with people about is liability insurance, which is lawsuit protection. And most people don't think about that they might get sued for something. But the example I kind of like to give is, let's say that somebody's driving around your hospital and they crash into an ER doctor. And sometimes we put together a little bit negative situations because the reason we have insurance is in case really bad things happen. We don't say, well, if things are great, let's pressure test a positive scenario. So we look at some of the worst things that can happen. We crash into an ER doctor and we paralyze that person from the neck down. And this ER doctor was 35 years old and making about $250,000 a year, and now can't ever be an ER doctor ever again. Then the question is, what is the probability that the person who hit him is going to get sued?
Oh,
And
yeah,
yeah, what would
probably.
you say?
Well, probably pretty good.
Right, yeah. Suddenly I went from $200,000 a year to zero, and a family and kids, um, and then how would they determine then? I guess we sort of kind of walk you through this. How would they determine how much to sue for?
Well, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but if you approach a lawyer to sue somebody, I know that usually they go and research whoever they're about to sue to see if they're even worth suing.
That's true.
So I would assume they're going to evaluate, does this person even have money for me to take it?
That is an excellent point, which again is as people's wealth goes up, they care more and more about this because somebody really wealthy is going to get researched and found out that they have a lot of money and so are literally more likely to get sued. That's
So
exactly
I
right.
know a lot of my business mentors have again tried to pound into my brain that asset protection is a really big deal when you start becoming successful and you start getting more money. And I'm taking a pause. Can we just like address the elephant in the room right now with your dogs behind you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, a lot of times I'm talking with people and like, hey, Ryan, you've got this house and you've got a yard and why don't you get dogs? And I'm like, hey, I thought that was a good idea. So I now have 3 dogs. We've
Oh my
got,
gosh.
yeah. These two, are pretty social. This guy over here, he's pretty social as well. He's not drinking though. He's 5 years sober, but he's still okay to hang out with people that are drinking. He just doesn't participate. So,
Oh my Lord. Okay.
we're working on naming them. we've had some house ideas for names. We think John Steinbark is a good name for this guy. We haven't decided on her name yet. And then yeah, we're trying to work this out.
Okay, can
yeah.
I make a suggestion?
Sure.
She feels like a Tiffany Barkstein.
Tiffany Barkstein.
Yep.
Tiffany Barkstein. Is she yeah. Tiffany
Or
Barkstein.
Is that what was the first one's name? What was his last name?
Steinbark.
Steinbark. Okay.
Yeah.
Barkstein. I like Barkstein. I don't know why. It has a good ring to it. And she looks like a Tiffany.
Tiffany Barkstein. Yeah. We were thinking about getting plaques actually, so that people could know who they were. Almost like famous people, or that you walk through the halls and you have the pictures of all the greats from throughout time. They've joined, I think, the Hall of Greatness here, and as such, I think they should be recognized.
I love it. Okay, now we're gonna jump back to more serious talk of
sure.
Asset protection, definitely. So that's one of the types of insurance, right? To prevent yourself from being sued, basically.
Right. And so when something like that happens, in that last example, somebody gets hit by a car and now they're injured, maybe paralyzed, and they can't work anymore. They have a calculation in the legal community called a person's human life value, where they look at how much money would that person have earned for the rest of their life. And if that earning potential is taken away, then that's the amount that that person who caused the damage is liable for. So if somebody is making $200,000 a year and they're 35, they're probably going to make several $1 million over the rest of their career had they not gotten in the accident. So whoever crashed into this person is then legally liable for paying for this damage. And so unfortunately, what some people will do when they get car insurance is they don't really think through kind of the bigger purpose of why they own the insurance. And they're trying to get the smallest amount of coverage they can possibly get away with legally, because there's laws that say that you have to have car insurance when you drive. Unfortunately, that amount is, I think it's $25,000 of coverage for something like this happening, which if a person is being sued, obviously, for several $1 million, the $25,000 is not going to be enough to cover it. And so what will happen is the insurance company will just say, wow, this person's getting sued for millions of dollars. We're just going to write a check for $25,000 and let them have fun with the remainder of the lawsuit. So one of the things that we suggest to our clients is to get enough liability coverage, among other reasons, so that the insurance company cares about the lawsuit. So let's say instead a person's getting sued for $2 million, but they have 1.1 million of coverage. The insurance company is more likely not just going to write a check for $1 million and then just leave. They're not going to want to pay that amount of money because it's such a large amount, and they're more likely going to hire attorneys that will fight for you and defend you on your behalf in the lawsuit because they're on the hook for such a large amount. So part of it is using insurance to leverage the insurance company's kind of legal defense, if possible. And it's also more coverage, so there's more protection for things like that. But anyway, so that'd be the first thing. I don't personally even sell this kind of insurance. This would be auto. You would want to talk to your auto insurance person, homeowners insurance agent for this. But just because I don't personally sell it or make money from it, doesn't mean that it's not important for people to have. And if our philosophy from a financial planning standpoint is that we're going to protect our wealth and protect our income, then it doesn't really matter what kind of insurance or who sells it. It just really matters that the person gets it. So that'd be kind of the first thing.
Okay.
Anyway, so
that's
yes.
a lot of information.
So then let's kind of flip it. Let's say that maybe now a person is earning $200,000 a year, only they're now the one that gets injured, except let's say they don't get injured because of somebody else. Maybe they get injured because they just drove into a pole, or maybe they get injured from something else that wasn't anybody's fault, or maybe they get sick or hurt. Now that person has the same loss. So we would want to protect ourselves, our income. In case that we're not able to sue somebody, or the person who hit us doesn't have enough insurance themselves. So that would basically be disability insurance. So if a person loses their ability to work and earn an income, then ideally we'd want that income to be fully replaced so that their family still has money, they still have money, they're not a burden to other people. And a lot of people think about insuring things like their car and the value of their car. Maybe somebody's driving around a car that's $20,000 and they think that's a really big asset, and $20,000 is a lot of money. But very rarely do people actually consider the value of their income. For most people, the value of their income far exceeds any of their other assets, especially for people that are younger. And interestingly enough, most people, many people forget to protect this asset. So ideally, like I said, what would happen is someone becomes sick or hurt or injured, and whatever amount of money they are making, an insurance company now pays them that money. And I've actually had several clients that have been disabled and no longer able to earn money. And some of them had disability insurance coverage and some of them did not. And it's a very different situation, whether somebody has this or not. For example, I have a physician that is unfortunately losing her eyesight. So is kind of going blind and is not able to be a doctor anymore. But thankfully, this person has disability insurance. It's now paying her income. It's going to continue to pay her money until she's 67 years old, and then can use that money to retire.
So would you say that disability insurance is probably like, if you were to start getting insurance, that's one of the first ones you would look at?
Yeah, because for sure that and liability. Yeah, being sued and actually protecting a person's income. So from a financial planning standpoint, I think that it's important for somebody to protect their income until they've saved enough money to retire. Once somebody has enough money, so for example, someone I know retired from Wall Street and they're worth roughly $10 million. And then once they retired, they decide to cancel the disability insurance policy. Well, that's probably okay because they have $10 million saved up. And if they get disabled, then who cares? I mean, it's bad, obviously, but
so it wouldn't hit them as dramatically if they have $10 million already saved up for a rainy day.
Yeah, exactly. And they can retire. If they get sick or hurt and can never work again, they still have enough money to not be dependent on other people or burden or on the street, basically.
Okay. Well, that would explain why a lot of my mentors put a lot of emphasis on financial independence, like having that as a goal to work towards. Because now that you're saying that, it makes sense. If you have enough money, like if you really focus on, like you said, retirement money and being where you're not really having to rely on income anymore, in the sense that your income is matching at least or above your expenses, right? So
sure. Right. And that you want to protect the income until you have enough saved up so that even if the income goes away, then you still have enough money.
I can't believe they don't teach this in school. Like we just don't learn about money. I didn't go to a fancy, private school. I didn't learn this. I had to learn this through mentors and now through you. So
it's really funny you say that because that's the case for everybody. So I studied business in college, specifically finance, and I studied an area called quantitative finance. And nowhere in any of that was I taught this.
Right?
Nowhere.
I know. I have a business degree, and it hit me one day, like a couple of years after I received it. I was like, they taught me how to manage a business really well. They taught me how to manage a team. They taught me how to, read the financials. Nowhere did they teach me how to start a business.
Sure. Yeah. Like why you should have an LLC compared to a C Corp.
Yeah. They just moseyed on over like the actual foundational components of starting a business. No, they just trained me how to manage one. And just like you're saying, I think I had one class in high school that taught me how to balance a checkbook, which I think is probably more than what most kids get, right?
Sure.
But like as a teenager, I was like, A, you're not showing me why I need to know this. B, who uses checks anymore?
Right.
And C, like, I don't need to know this right now, so I don't really care about it.
Well, that's part of the issue is that people, if whatever the thing are being taught doesn't immediately apply to them, it's really easy for them to forget it.
Absolutely.
So
why is it important? Yeah. I mean, we kind of touched on it in the beginning, but I just want to, now that we're talking about this, let's, be the change, right? Why is it so important? What could happen if I don't get these insurance policies that you're telling me about?
Sure. So there was a dentist, for example, that worked at our company, and he got an injury where his arm, he couldn't do dental work anymore. And then he ended up losing every single thing that he had. So he ended up losing his job, losing his house, ended up sleeping homeless in his car for a long period of time. Like this is the kind of thing that can happen. I mean, imagine what your life looks like if your income goes to zero and you can't work. I mean, that's the biggest financial disaster imaginable. That immediately concerns like, how am I going to pay rent? And then what people really don't want is they don't want to be dependent on other people. Almost nobody wants to be a burden on their family or on anywhere else. So the biggest thing for having independence means that if bad stuff happens, insurance allows the person to maintain their independence still.
Absolutely. At least for me, independence is really important. So, and as I'm getting older, I'm like, yeah, I'm now starting to see, I don't have children right now, but if I had a family, like I wouldn't want to leave behind debt for them. I wouldn't want to, like you said, be a burden. So yeah, totally get what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. Then that would be more of a life insurance type situation. So people usually don't give life insurance a whole lot of thought until they actually have kids. And then they think, well, if something happens to me, I want to make sure that no matter what, my family is okay. People can understand dying a lot more easily than it's hard to imagine getting disabled. They think wheelchair and crutches, and if somebody that's healthy, it's almost unimaginable. But for some reason, death is a lot easier to imagine. People die all the time. We hear about it. So that's usually when people start looking into it. I think it's best to look in. But
I'm about to give some dating advice for all the men out there. Like, I think once a woman hits like 30, maybe it's different for every girl, but it is sexy for you to have life insurance.
Like life insurance
before you even have sex appeal. Like if you don't even have any kids and like you're single, like you tell a woman you've got life insurance for your future children, she's like, take me now.
All right. I think, we think we should probably encourage more people to put that in their dating profile. Nothing turns people on like
that. Like, tell me about your life insurance. How long have you had it?
Why do you own life insurance? How much do you have? What kind is it?
What's your policy look like? Like before you put
what's your policy number?
I love it. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's hilarious. Yeah. I've never been asked that. I probably do pretty well. I've got a fair amount of life insurance on myself.
Like part of the list, right?
Yeah.
Tall, exactly. Dark, handsome, has life insurance.
Exactly. Though someone's asking me that, I might be worried they're trying to kill me. So you got to be careful there too.
I realize that is a possibility and that would cross your mind. So ladies, don't be creepy about it. Try to be as not creepy as possible.
Don't sneak into the filing cabinet looking for policy numbers in the middle of the night, maybe.
I can genuinely say I've never done that, but maybe I should start.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. What types of life insurance are there?
So for the most part, there is term insurance, which is the most common kind that people have heard of. And so term insurance is called that because it's in force. The coverage is there for a certain period of time. And a pretty common term length is 20 years. So someone might have kids and decide, okay, I want to make sure that if I die between now and 20 years from now, there's money that goes to my family. And then their thoughts are usually that if I make it past 20 years, hopefully my kids are grown and they're on their own right now, so I probably don't need the insurance anymore, and they kind of can let it lapse. So it was one of the thought processes. Now, I also have some thoughts about that because usually people think that, well, my kids will be grown and be on their own, but how many times have we seen where that's actually not the case, right? How many parents are still supporting their children even through their 20s, sometimes even in their 30s? So I think that people overestimate how quickly or how likely it is that their kids are going to be on their own, especially, in the world that we live in today. I mean, imagine graduating during a pandemic, trying to find a job. I graduated in 2010 from college, and during that time, we're in a recession from a financial crisis. We don't know what the world's actually going to be looking like when our kids are getting, they're starting on their own. And also the price of houses has gone up enormously. Everyone's noticed this. It used to be much easier to buy a house, and they're getting more and more expensive. So it's taking, I think, younger folks longer and longer to be able to establish themselves. But anyway, going back, so there's insurance that's in force for a certain period of time, and that's usually the least expensive kind because the insurance companies know that only about 1% to 2% of people who have term insurance actually end up dying during that period of time. So because most people don't die, they can provide a very large amount of a death benefit and life insurance coverage for a very small premium. And so for a lot of people that just want to make sure that they're covered, that's a good option. The other kind of insurance, and there's a lot of subtypes of this, but it is called permanent insurance. So term insurance is in force for a term of time. Permanent insurance is in force forever, permanent life insurance. And if you look at term insurance, like I said, 1 to 2% of people with term insurance die during the term. But then what percent of people die during the period of time when they have permanent insurance? Well, it's in force for forever. So there's 100% chance the person dies at some point.
Yeah.
So what that means then for the insurance company's standpoint is the premiums for this kind of insurance are substantially higher because the insurance companies know that 100% of the time we're paying out a death benefit at some point. So there are other features with this insurance because if a person, let's say somebody has $1 million of permanent insurance and they're 98 years old, the insurance company is looking at this person thinking, well, they're going to pass away pretty soon, probably. And when they do, we're going to have to pay $1 million to their beneficiaries. So what insurance companies started doing is saying, well, why not let that person use some of that death benefit while they're still alive? We're going to, as the insurance company, we're going to have to pay it out either way. So why not let them use it while they're still alive? And so there are insurance policies that build cash value that a person can use while they're living as kind of like a savings account. And the longer they live, and the closer they get to their expected death, the more and more of their death benefit becomes available in the form of cash value, and they can use it for retirement or vacations or boats or whatever they want to buy with it. So depending on the person's financial situation, you'd have to look at what kind makes the most sense. But that would be the other type, and this is a very common thing, and people will have this pretty often.
Okay, so let me see if I understand this, because I want to make sure I get it. So the first option, it's covering you for a certain period of time, and like you said, you may or may not die during that certain period. If you do, you have really great benefits, basically, but you most likely won't. So then the second option, permanent insurance, like 100% going to die during that term or during that duration, and they will let me borrow from it. So like I can't
Correct.
borrow from term insurance, but I can borrow from permanent insurance.
That's exactly correct. Well said.
Yes.
Nailed it.
I wish I need to win rewards when I get these things right.
You should. Ding, 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 ding.
I get a gold star. Ding, ding, ding. Okay.
Yeah. You actually now probably know more about insurance than 95% of people after this conversation.
So now I'm not just a nerd. I'm a nerd with insurance.
You're an insurance nerd. You're a very special kind of nerd.
Okay. I like this. I now can put this on my resume, and it's good coffee talk.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. Especially for dating.
But because I know you, I also know that there's a third option, which is whole life insurance, right?
Sure. So
or am I getting ahead of you?
No, that's okay. So whole life is a permanent type of insurance. So the two kinds are term and permanent, and underneath permanent, there's various kinds, including whole life. There's also something called universal life. There's also something called indexed life insurance. There's a bunch of subcategories under permanent, and whole life is one of those. So whole life is probably the most simple kind of permanent insurance. It's very similar to what I described. Some of the other types of insurance have accounts that there's cash value that the person who's insured can use. They can borrow against their death benefit, but many of them have allowed the person to start investing that money in various places. So for example, you could put money inside your insurance policy. You have cash value. You can invest that in the stock market. There are policies that allow you to do that. And if you do that, then that money can grow and earn possibly more interest than otherwise. But at the same time, people can take risk with that money. Sometimes you can lose money in your insurance policy, depending on how it's set up. So there's various ways to do that, because someone who has lots of cash value in their insurance policy, maybe they have $500,000 of cash value, might be thinking, we should maybe invest some of this and earn a higher interest rate or a higher rate of return. So there are ways to do that as well.
Okay. What are some of the other ways to do that as well?
It depends how in the weeds you'd like to get, but there's
is that for another call? Is that for
it may be, yeah, describing how these actual investment accounts work inside the insurance policy, and we may want to save that one for another day.
Okay,
there's a lot of details around that one. Yeah.
we're covering the basics today, because
this is insurance basics.
I'm filling in the holes, because I feel like I've heard some of these things, especially in my early 20s. I cannot tell you how many people tried to recruit me to be an insurance salesman. Like, sure. I mean, I get it. I'm a girl. you know, I'm a girl
Yeah,
and I at the time was very good in sales, and so I get it. But I had to sit through so many pitches, and I feel like I picked up some things along the way.
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But
Yeah,
I, again, like we were saying in high school, you know, it was like, well, I don't really need this now in my early 20s. And sadly, I am humble enough to say now that I'm in my 30s, I'm starting to realize, like, yes, I should have a Roth IRA. Yes, I should have more money in my 401k. Yes, I should maybe get some stocks. Like now it's kind of interesting to me, but I think that's just because when I was younger, I didn't really have that long-term thinking. I wasn't really thinking about my future children. I wasn't really thinking about the possibility of dying. And now when I see some of my, uh, you know, some young entrepreneurs who are getting into business, and I get it, they're sick of corporate America, right? But
Mhm.
there are some benefits to corporate America. One of that is, you know, they're contributing to your 401k, and they're taking on a lot more risk in business than the employee, right? The employee can choose to quit and walk away.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, what? That was weird. I probably hit a button. Um,
Serious eavesdropping.
Series eavesdrop.
Eavesdropping.
Well, you know, between Facebook and Siri, right? My whole life is just out there.
Yep. Welcome to the 21st century.
Welcome to year 2021.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and I'm just gonna touch on it for a second because I know a lot of people who complain about having a regular 9 to 5 job, but at the same time, it's like maybe you're in a point of your life where you need to have that security a little bit more. You know, saving up money, getting some insurance, and then like save up and then start a business. A business is very risky.
Yeah.
And even when you do get into one, now you're going to have to start providing some of that insurance and benefits for yourself. So you really can't dabble if you want to be 100% full-time entrepreneur.
That's it's very well said. And one of the things I've noticed is that people that have very secure salary jobs tend to be more risky in other places in their life. They tend to have more risky stocks. They tend to not necessarily get insurance the way as other people do. Business owners have a very different perspective because they're already taking an absolutely enormous amount of risk in their business. Their livelihood depends on how well their business works. So what I find is that the business owners, they tend to actually not take as much risk in other areas. They tend to own have a lot of cash. They tend to have a lot of real estate. They're kind of, and also then tend to be better protected as well because they're trying to unload as much risk as they can because they have such this big risky thing. The other thing that's interesting about insurance too is sometimes I had a client one time that was buying a business, it was a oral surgery practice, and they were getting a bank loan in order to buy the business. But in order to qualify for the bank loan, the bank required them to have life insurance. Otherwise, they wouldn't loan them the money to start the business because then if they were to pass away, the bank wouldn't have anyone to collect the money from. So one reason that business owners own life insurance is to get bank loans, and because a lot banks are more likely to lend to somebody that has insurance.
Okay, so I have a little bit of a naive question.
Sure.
Maybe. So, okay, obviously insurance is important. What is the cost? Like if I'm somebody who's like, okay, I really should get life insurance, what kind of cost am I looking at? How much is it coming out of my paycheck? What should I set aside?
It really depends on the person's age and on their health and what kind. If it was something like term insurance, you maybe, I don't know, $20-$30 a month could probably get potentially $1 million of coverage. It also depends how much coverage a person wants to have. If they want to completely protect all of their income and ensure their human life value, then that would be a higher number than if we wanted to just get half of that. But I think I'm a big fan of that some is better than zero. Like $500,000 beats zero by a lot, even if the maximum they could get is $1 million. So at least to get some of these basic coverages in place, it may be less than $100 a month for most people. And you know, if you look at your liability coverage, disability, life, you can probably get that done for that. And then it really depends too. Again, $10 a month is that has some coverage is way better than no coverage, nothing. So it's almost like, what is the budget and how much can we allocate toward this and what makes sense? Because I don't want to scare people off from getting anything if they don't want to pay for it or can't.
No, I'm starting to see that. Even if, your income isn't fantastic, I'm still seeing it's so important to be thinking ahead and getting to a point where you can afford. I mean, that's why side hustles are so important, right? Like picking up just a side hustle to make an extra $100 to $500 a month alone
Mhm.
would probably help give you some value of getting insurance or, just helping to get out of the financial hole. Question I've always been curious about, never looked deeply into. So when I went to college, and I went to a very pricey college, I probably didn't have to go so expensive, but I did. I remember my father saying that he took out a life insurance policy on me when I got my student loan.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's funny because now, like I think I've been out of school now for 11 years, which is a long time. But I brought that up to him and he claims he has no idea what I'm talking about. He says he never did this. But I've always in the back of my head was like, can you do that? Can you do that? Is that a good idea?
Take out a life insurance policy on somebody else.
Yes.
Yeah, that can make sense. Sure.
Without them knowing?
you actually can do that.
What?
Yeah. So
Okay.
usually not. Usually that person has to agree to be insured and they have to sign saying I'm an insured, and then they have to get their medical record looked at. But
Okay.
sometimes you have situations where that person is not cooperative and refuses to be insured, and somebody really wants them to get insured. And then you need to go to a very special insurance company, Lloyd's of London. They specifically have policies that nobody else will do, where they'll insure somebody without their consent or permission. And they charge
Oh,
a premium for that, a very big
that,
premium for that.
well, yeah, I would imagine that's a big premium, but I didn't know that could even be done. I would imagine if
Yeah,
you're, getting a life insurance policy on your child for school, an insurance company is more lenient with that because they're, you're the parents.
right.
I didn't know that was possible. So if I start dating someone and they don't have a good life insurance policy, can I get one and then like I just think that's funny.
Possibly.
I'm just trying
Yeah,
to think
maybe.
ahead.
Yeah, I think they have some requirements around that because they want to make sure that you're not some crazy psycho that's just doing it to get the money. They want to make sure there's an actual reason for it, like some sort of a business reason.
So I have to
Yeah,
prove that I'm not a stalker and I'm not preparing to do something terrible.
I think
Okay,
you
got
just
it.
need to prove there's a legitimate business reason for it, or some reason like that. Yeah.
Okay. So on that same note, so let's say I'm a business owner. I have a small business, I own a restaurant or something.
Yeah.
And I know there's some really awesome tax hacks that we're not going to go into on this call about using your children as tax benefits. Anyway, we're not going to go into that. But
Mhm.
so if I start up a restaurant and let's say I have a 15-year-old teenager and I took out a life insurance, let's say for their college or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And then borrow money from it to help fund the business. Is that
Mhm. You can
legal?
do that. 100% legal. Yeah. So there's a huge difference between the owner of the policy and the
Mm-hmm.
insured. And the owner of the policy has the most power. They can do whatever they want with the policy. They can cancel it. They can borrow money from it. The insured is just the name listed on the policy. So parents can do this. They can get life insurance on their children. That can accumulate cash value and money, and they can use that money for their business or for college for their kids or for any reason they want.
That's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay,
people do this a
so,
lot.
and I'm seriously, I'm not trying to get morbid on this phone call or anything, but what
Um,
happens?
this is a morbid conversation, sure.
What happens if you do that, right? And you take out, let's say, a certain like couple hundred, or I don't know how much you get for doing that, but let's just say you take out a couple $1,000 to help fund your business. Something happens, God forbid, to your child, and like
Mm-hmm.
it still has to be paid back, I'm assuming, right? It's still,
Sure. So in that example, the policy a death benefit is going to be a higher amount than the amount of cash you can borrow. So let's say, for example, the death benefit is 500,000 and there's 100,000 of cash, and they take out the 100,000 of cash and use it for their business. Then the child dies. What would happen is there'd be a $500,000 death benefit from the death of the child, and then the first 100,000 goes to pay off the amount that was spent in the business, and then the remaining 400,000 goes to the beneficiary.
Gotcha. And hopefully that never happens, but I also know unforeseen things happen.
Sure. Well, actually, it is kind of morbid, but it's suggestible for people to get life insurance policies on their children anyway, because if a family loses a child, the divorce rates skyrocket. They go through the roof. If you actually look at the probability of getting divorced after a child's been lost, it's really, really high. Wow. So one of the things that can be helpful is having life insurance on the child, just God forbid that happens. And then there's enough money so that the parents and the family can work through whatever they need to work through. They can get the help that they need. They maybe need to take time off of work. It's actually a really good idea to get that done to help keep the family together.
Oh, I never thought about it that way. Because, that is a hard thing to go through. And to be able to have the money for, say, a therapist or family counseling, that's huge.
Well, and I kind of, even if your children are older, so I'm 33, for example, and I just kind of think, what would it be like for my parents if I passed away? And they'd be a wreck. So I actually have them as a beneficiary for some of my insurance, because they might literally need to take time off of work to go deal with that. And then I'm like, well, how much would I like them to have? How long would I like them to be able to take time off of work if they needed to? And I'm like, maybe forever. So they have enough insurance that if something happened to me, they would have enough money they could both immediately retire, just so, they wouldn't have to deal with the loss and also have to still try to work.
I like that. Well, okay. And one last question before we wrap up. It's related. I feel like it overlaps. So back to the scenario of having life insurance on your kid, borrowing money from it. I guess it's a two-part question. A, how soon can you borrow money from it? And two, can you take that money and then invest it in like an investment account where it would grow over time?
Sure. Now the answer is yes to the second question. You can do that. And then how soon the money grows really depends on the type of policy that gets set up. Some insurance policy has money show up right away. Other policies, it takes a little bit longer for the money to show up in order to use it. So it's kind of dependent. And depending on the situation, policies can be designed accordingly. So if someone doesn't need money for a longer period of time, then maybe that's okay. But if they really need money soon or want to be able to use it soon, then you can design policies where you can have access to the money right away. And then you can easily take the money out of life insurance and put it in any other kind of investment. We can invest in stocks, or for example, when I bought the house that I'm in right now, I had money, cash value in my life insurance, and I took money out of that to help pay for a down payment on my house. So you can do that. And then now my house you can consider an investment and is appreciating. And then, so you can do that.
Does the bank care where that money's coming from? Like, do you have to disclose where you're getting it from?
Not really. When you they have to make sure everything lines up, but they don't have a problem with it. Oh. You just say, I took money out of my life insurance policy. Here's where it came from. And the bank will say, okay, sounds good. They consider that like a cash asset. They see it all the time.
Well, yeah, probably because this is a technique that's done often. So, and it's guaranteed money, right? Like it's coming from the insurance company. So it's not, I'm sure they don't care.
Right. They're very familiar with this, and they don't care that it came from there. Because people do this all the time.
Well, I am so glad that I have a friend who is knowledgeable with insurance, because I didn't know. Again, I've picked up things here and there, but it's nice to be able to go and talk to someone and actually ask a question directly. And of course, I'm sure everyone has a different situation. So it's nice to know that there's someone to go to. Thanks, Ryan.
Absolutely. Anytime, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
And if anybody wants to connect with Ryan, you can go to sobelfinancial.com. He's super helpful. He's very knowledgeable and willing to give advice, but I'm sure at a certain point you're going to pay for it. So now you love me. I'm your friend. You're one of my besties. So thank you for jumping on a Zoom. And sure. Good to see you happy and healthy and COVID free. Woohoo. Good for you.
Yep, absolutely. Yep,
And
happy to have that be the case. Yeah.
I will see you and Tracy again soon.
Okay, Tiffany.
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 Oh my gosh, okay, she looks like a Tracy as well.
Yeah, definitely. I gotta get going here. I gotta take the dogs for a walk. They've been inside for a while. And obviously, you know what happens with dogs are inside for too long. So I'm gonna go take them for a walk. It's gonna be good, and yeah, get on with my day here.
So I'm going to see if you have any questions, feel free to leave your comments on our Facebook post. I will forward any questions that we get that I obviously won't be able to answer, but I can send them to you, Ryan, and you guys can connect. I'm going to stop this live and then hang on just a second, Ryan, so that you and I can chat for a second, and then I'll let you get back to your day.
All right. Thanks, Jessica.
Okay.
All right, we're off.
Yes. That was good.
Great. Well, yeah, I think that went pretty well.
I learned so much. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, and it went long. I guess there was a lot more to talk about than I realized. I suppose we could have gone on much longer, but we actually had to stop talking about insurance. We're on such a roll.
Well, I've noticed, because it's happened to me too, like when Austin and I jumped on and we started talking about Facebook ads, I could have gone on forever. And I didn't even realize, I was like, I didn't even know I knew so much about ads. I was just kind of, as I was going, explaining stuff that I've learned. And it was just like a never ending.
Yeah.
So it's easy to do that. But plus, I'm sure as I go back and review, and like, I'm going to have questions probably pop up, which would be good for another time. But I tried to hit questions that not only for me personally, I don't want to go too deep into my own personal situations and stuff, but just general questions that I'm sure other people would have.
Sure. Yeah, I think that was good. I think it was really good. I think you did a good job mediating that. Yeah, that was awesome. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So I touched on it a little bit before. So I'm going to take the recorded video, take out some of the parts that are more, for lack of a better word, boring.
Sure.
But
yeah,
there was so much good information there, and I'll splice it and put it together. It shortens the video a little bit, but that will go on to the Denver Great Minds website. I have like this kind of stockpile of videos. I can use URLs. So if you do videos like this anywhere else, if you have a URL, I can just add it to the website.
Okay.
Even if it's paid or not paid, because I think most of the stuff I have on there right now, most of it's free, but like Avital has a few things that is paid. So that will more professionally go there. And then as I share it amongst, the social network in the future, it links back to the website.
Okay.
That's the whole point of doing it. But
okay. Nice.
Since we do
That's great.
live, and it broadcasts live onto the Facebook page and like to multiple outlets, again, it's good for engagement. Eventually, because I think people are getting used to me doing this now, so more people will be jumping on and asking questions. I'm just getting them like used to seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
All right. Well, cool. This was kind of more fun than I thought it would be. So yeah, I'm gonna get running here, but yeah, good luck. Let me know if there's anything else you need from me with that. And let's catch up soon. I'm excited for a trip.
All right. And I love your dogs. Like, please, whenever we do this, let's have those in the background.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Bye.
See you, Jessica. Bye.